That's exactly what's happening, James confirmed. David is one of Meridian's top rainmakers. He brought in 3 major pharmaceutical clients worth about $12 million in annual contracts. The company has decided it's cheaper to quietly settle with his victims than to fire him and risk losing those accounts. He pushed the manila envelope across the table with a grim finality. Everything I found is in here. Dates, documentation, witness statements from people willing to talk off the record. Hotel receipts showing David and Glenda staying together at company expense. I found at least 7 trips over the past 8 months where they had adjoining rooms or shared rooms booked under Glenda's corporate card. Donald opened the envelope, the paper whispering like a confession. He began flipping through the contents, printed emails between David and Glenda. Nothing explicitly sexual, but intimate in ways no boss and subordinate should ever be. Looking forward to Miami. Last time was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Dinner tonight? He moved to the next set of documents, phone records, showing hundreds of calls and texts, many late at night. And then a timeline neatly laid out, showing Glenda's suspiciously rapid promotions since she started working directly under David. James pulled up another document on his laptop. Here's something else interesting. That senior director promotion Glenda mentioned, it was supposed to go to Jennifer Brooks. She had more experience, better performance reviews, and she'd been with Meridian longer. But David wanted Jennifer gone and Glenda elevated. He paused, letting the implication land. So Jennifer was given her opportunity to relocate to Boston, James continued. And suddenly the position became available for Glenda. Jesus, Donald muttered, his stomach twisting. So Glenda's career advancement is directly tied to sleeping with her boss. It appears that way. Yes, James said gently. Which means, if this comes out, Glenda's professional reputation is toast. Everyone will assume correctly that she earned her promotions on her back, not through merit. That's a career killer in most industries. Donald stared at the papers spread across the Starbucks table. The evidence of 8 months of lies, manipulation, corruption, and betrayal. Each page felt like another nail sealing the coffin of the life he thought he had. Each detail was a reminder. Glenda hadn't just betrayed him. She had built an entire future on deceit. And Donald knew now with absolute clarity that the fallout would be far greater than anyone at Meridian expected. Donald sat back, letting the weight of everything settle over him like a lead blanket. This wasn't just infidelity. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was systemic corruption, sexual exploitation, and a corporation that had decided predators were more profitable than principals. David hadn't seduced one lonely employee. He had a pattern, a history, a trail of women whose silence had been bought and buried. Meridian Pharmaceutical hadn't just looked the other way. They had funded it, protected it, enabled it. Donald felt sick and furious and strangely clear. What would you do? He asked quietly. If you were me? James leaned back thoughtful, serious in a way Donald rarely saw. You've got a lot of options, he said slowly, and none of them are easy. He held up one finger. Option 1 is the straightforward divorce. Legally, you're standing on a mountain of proof. In Georgia, adultery shifts everything in your favor. You'd likely keep your full equity in the house, maybe even qualify for temporary spousal support because of the income gap. And Glenda? She'd probably be responsible for your legal fees. If she doesn't contest, you could be done in 6 months, maybe sooner. Donald shook his head, jaw tight. That feels like she gets off easy. James nodded, unsurprised. Option 2, he continued, is to expose David to his wife and to Meridian. You blow up David's marriage, trigger an internal investigation, maybe even file a civil suit. David loses his job, his pristine reputation shatters, and Glenda, he exhaled. Her career takes a massive hit. Everyone will know how she really got promoted. He paused, giving Donald a chance to process the nuclear consequences. But Donald, for that's the scorched earth route. It's messy, public, and it won't just hit them. It'll hit you too. You'll be the guy who dragged his wife and her boss into the spotlight. You'll be the husband whose private pain became corporate gossip. Donald didn't respond immediately. He stared at the table, at the manila envelope stuffed with 8 months of betrayal, at the evidence of how little his marriage had meant to the woman who vowed to love him. James watched him with the steady patience of someone who knew the next step would define the rest of Donald's life. Donald wasn't sure what path he'd choose, but he knew one thing. None of them were walking away from this unscathed. "What's option 3? Donald asked quietly. James smiled, just a faint knowing curve at the corner of his mouth. "Option 3, he said, is the strategic approach." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "You're holding information that's valuable to multiple parties. Patricia Price deserves to know what kind of man she's married to. Meridian needs to understand just how much legal exposure they're sitting on. And Jennifer Brooks and the other women David has chewed up and discarded. They might want justice if they realize they weren't alone." James tapped the manila envelope between them. "With the right timing, you can orchestrate consequences that are comprehensive, but it requires patience, coordination, and hitting the exact right pressure point at the exact right moment." Donald sat back, absorbing the idea. His mind drifted to his history lessons. The war's won not by force, but by intelligence, by positioning, by waiting until the enemy overextended themselves, and then striking with precision. "I want option 3, he said. James didn't look surprised. He just nodded. "Yeah, I figured you would." They spent the next hour outlining the plan. James would keep digging, more evidence, more corroboration, and discreetly reach out to Jennifer Brooks and the others, letting them know they weren't isolated cases. And legally, NDAs could crumble if the company had continued the same pattern of misconduct. Courts had ruled it before. A company can't buy silence while repeating the crime. Donald would quietly consult a divorce attorney, gathering his own legal arsenal. But filing? Not yet. He would continue playing the role of the calm, clueless husband, the man Glenda thought she could fool forever, all while tightening the noose around the truth. "There's one more thing you need to do," James said, his tone shifting to something more serious. "Get tested for STDs." Donald blinked. It hit him like a slap. "I know it's harsh," James said gently, "but if Glenda's been sleeping with David for months while still sleeping with you..." Donald's stomach twisted. He hadn't even considered the possibility. Another layer of betrayal, another violation, a risk he never agreed to take. "Right," he said quietly. "I'll do that today." James's expression softened. "Donald, this is going to get ugly before it gets better. Once you commit to this path, there's no reversing it. You need to be absolutely certain." "I am," Donald said. "David's been doing this for years. The company's been letting him. How many more women is he going to pull into this? How many marriages is he going to destroy before someone stops him?" James extended his hand again. Donald shook it, firm, grounded, resolute. Then they parted ways. Donald placed the manila envelope into his messenger bag like a soldier, securing classified intelligence, and drove toward an urgent care clinic. The testing itself was quick, but humiliating in a way he hadn't expected. Sitting in a small, sterile room, while a nurse asked him clinical questions about sexual partners, exposure, symptoms, he felt the weight of it, the shame of it, even though none of it was his fault. The nurse was kind and professional. "Your results will be back in about a week," she said. "Try not to worry too much, and if there is anything, most conditions are treatable these days." Donald thanked her and left the clinic feeling hollow, emptied out from the inside. This was what betrayal looked like, not just heartbreak, but logistics, not just emotional devastation, but medical tests, legal strategies, cold paperwork, and the slow realization that the life he thought he had was gone. And the battle for the truth had only just begun. Living in a state of constant vigilance and deception became Donald's new normal. Glenda came home at 8:45 p.m., later than she'd predicted, but still well within the usual range. She looked tired but satisfied, her hair slightly mussed from a long day, carrying takeout from the Thai place they both loved. "Peace offering," she said lightly, lifting the bag. "I know I've been working crazy hours lately. Thought we could have dinner together, just us." "That's sweet," Donald said, taking the bag and unpacking containers of pad thai, green curry and spring rolls. "How was your day?" "Intense," Glenda replied, kicking off her heels and pouring herself a generous glass of wine. David and I spent 2 hours with the new client, and I think we nailed it. They're ready to sign a contract worth about $2.3 million annually. If this goes through, my bonus alone will be close to $15,000. That's amazing, Donald said, watching her face light with excitement. You've been working really hard for this. I have, Glenda said proudly. David keeps telling me I have what it takes to make partner eventually. Not many women reach that level at Meridian. I could be one of the first. Donald thought of Jennifer Brooks, of Christine Morrison, of all the women whose careers had been quietly derailed by David's manipulation. David seems to take a lot of personal interest in your success, Donald said carefully. He does, Glenda answered, not hearing the subtext at all. He told me today that I remind him of himself when he was younger, hungry, ambitious, willing to do whatever it takes to win. He said I'm going places. I bet he did, Donald murmured. They ate dinner at their kitchen table, sitting in the same simple IKEA chairs they'd picked out together 3 years ago. Glenda stuck to safe topics, marketing strategies, client expectations, office gossip. Donald listened, asked the right questions, played the supportive husband flawlessly. Later, as they were getting ready for bed, Glenda's phone buzzed. She glanced down, smiled, and typed a quick reply. "Everything okay?" Donald asked from the bathroom, toothbrush in hand. "Just David with a question about tomorrow's presentation," Glenda called back. "He works too late. I keep telling him he needs better work-life balance." The irony was completely lost on her. Tuesday afternoon, Donald had a free period and used it to meet Rachel Morrison, a divorce attorney recommended by a guy at his gym. Her Buckhead office was exactly what he expected. Warm wood paneling, expensive art, leather furniture that smelled like money. Rachel herself was mid-50s, sharp, composed, wearing a charcoal suit and a calm but penetrating expression. She listened to Donald's entire story without interrupting, occasionally jotting notes in tight, efficient handwriting. "You have an exceptionally strong case," she said when he finished. "The documentation your investigator friend collected is excellent. In Georgia, adultery significantly affects property division and alimony. Given the income disparity, she earns almost twice your salary, and her clear fault in the breakdown of the marriage. You would likely retain full equity in the home, possibly receive temporary rehabilitative alimony for 1 to 2 years, and she would be responsible for most of the legal fees." "What's the timeline?" Donald asked. "If she doesn't contest, and she might not, given the evidence, we could reach a settlement within 4 to 6 months. Georgia requires a 30-day waiting period after filing. Then it's just negotiation. If she fights it, it could take a year or more, but honestly, most cheating spouses prefer settling quickly and quietly to avoid public embarrassment." Rachel leaned forward slightly. "But I get the sense you're not looking for just a clean divorce. What else are you thinking?" Donald told her about David, about the pattern, about the company's silence, about the other women whose careers had been sacrificed to protect a man like him. "If I'm going to blow up my life anyway," Donald said, voice low, "shouldn't there be some larger justice?" "She's suspicious." "Glenda, what did you tell her? David, conference stuff, meetings, dinners?" "She didn't completely buy it. We need to be more careful. Glenda, maybe we should cool things off for a while. This is getting complicated. David, we've been through this before. Just a few more months, until your promotion is locked in and your salary increase kicks in. Then we can make decisions about leaving our spouses. I'm not losing you because we got impatient. Glenda, do you really think you'll leave Patricia? You've been saying that for months. David, I promise, by this time next year we'll be together for real. No more hiding. We'll both file for divorce around the same time. Say we're moving on from dead marriages. No one will connect it to us being together. Glenda, I hope you mean that because I can't keep lying to Donald forever. He's a good man. He doesn't deserve this. David, then end it. Tell him you want a divorce. You don't have to mention us." "Glenda, I can't, not yet." What mattered now was protecting himself, stopping David from victimizing anyone else, and making sure actions actually had consequences. If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and tell me in the comments what you would have done in Donald's situation. Thursday and Friday passed in a blur of careful normalcy. Donald went to school, taught his classes, graded papers. He came home, made dinner, watched TV with Glenda when she wasn't working late. He played the role of the devoted husband perfectly, never letting his mask slip, never giving any indication that he knew the truth. Friday evening, Glenda suggested they go out for dinner. A rare treat during her busy season, they went to a nice Italian place in Decatur, sat across from each other in a cozy booth, and talked about their plans for Thanksgiving the following week. "My parents want us to come to Savannah," Glenda said, twirling pasta on her fork. "But I was thinking maybe we could do Thanksgiving here, just the two of us. I feel like we've been so busy lately. It would be nice to have a quiet holiday together." "That sounds perfect," Donald said, thinking about how by Thanksgiving their marriage would likely be in ashes, and they'd both be retaining lawyers. "Donald," Glenda said suddenly, reaching across the table to take his hand. "I know I've been distracted with work. I'm sorry about that. You've been so patient and supportive, and I don't tell you enough how much I appreciate it." Donald looked at her hand covering his, the same hand wearing the wedding ring. He had saved 3 months to buy. "It's okay. I know how hard you work. Things will calm down after the holidays," Glenda promised. "And then we can really focus on us. Maybe plan that vacation we've been talking about, somewhere tropical. Just you and me reconnecting. I'd like that," Donald lied, wondering if Glenda had planned to use that vacation to ask for a divorce, softening him up with a romantic getaway before delivering the blow. Their formal notice had been sent to Meridian Pharmaceuticals' legal department, informing them that Jennifer now considered her NDA void due to the company's continued pattern of harassment. "We have our smoking gun." At 7:03 a.m., another text from James. "Patricia Price responded to your email. She wants to meet today. I gave her your number. She sounds devastated but determined." At 7:15 a.m., Rachel again. "Divorce papers are ready to file. I'll have them served to Glenda at her office at 10 a.m. maximum." Professional embarrassment. "I've also sent our complete evidence package to Meridian's board of directors, their general counsel, and their head of HR. They'll have it by 19 a.m. The T-Wasser package includes documentation of David's pattern of harassment. The hotel receipts, the text messages, everything. They'll have no choice but to act." At 7:22 a.m., James confirmed one more thing. "Krista Price from the Atlanta Business Chronicle has everything. She's running a preliminary story online today at noon, with a full print edition Thursday." Donald took a deep breath and typed out responses, confirming receipt to both Rachel and James. The machinery was in motion now. No turning back. He felt strangely calm, like a general who had planned a battle for months and was now watching his strategy unfold exactly as designed. At 7:30, Glenda came downstairs, already dressed for work in a sharp charcoal suit with a crimson blouse underneath. Her power outfit, she called it. She poured coffee and immediately checked her phone, frowning at something on the screen. "Everything okay?" Donald asked, keeping his tone casual. "Weird email from Jennifer Brooks," Glenda said, scrolling. "Something about filing a workplace complaint. David forwarded it to the whole leadership team asking if anyone knows what she's talking about." "Huh?" Donald said neutrally. "What kind of complaint?" "I don't know. Something about a hostile work environment." Glenda shook her head dismissively. Jennifer's always been a troublemaker. She couldn't handle the pressure of the senior account manager role, so she transferred to Boston. And now she's trying to blame everyone else for her failures. It's pathetic, honestly. Donald said nothing. Sometimes the most effective revolution is the one that looks calm on the surface but is actually carefully orchestrated chaos underneath. His 17-year-old students had no idea their teacher was quietly orchestrating his own small revolution. At 9:23 a.m. during his planning period, Donald's phone rang. Patricia Price. He stepped into the empty hallway to take the call. "This is Donald." "Mr. Wan." Patricia's voice was tight with controlled emotion, each word measured and deliberate. "I received your email. I need to know this is real. I need to know you're not some sick person making this up to hurt my family." "I'm sorry, Mrs. Price, but it is real," Donald said gently. "I wouldn't contact you if I wasn't absolutely certain. I heard them together in a hotel room in Miami. I have text messages where David promises to leave you, where he coaches my wife on how to hide assets before divorcing me. I know this is devastating, but you deserve the truth. He heard Patricia take a shaky, ragged breath. How long? She asked. Based on the documentation I've gathered, at least 8 months, possibly longer. 8 months, she repeated, her voice breaking under the weight of it. We've been married for 15 years. We have 2 children. Emily just turned 13 last month and Joshua is 10. I trusted him. I believed him every time he said he was traveling for work. I never questioned. Her voice cracked completely, and Donald's heart ached for her. Patricia was an innocent victim in all of this, just like him. I know, he said softly. I trusted my wife too. I'm not doing this for revenge. Mrs. Price, I'm doing it because the truth matters, and because your husband and my wife need to face consequences for what they've done. What happens now? Patricia asked, regaining a measure of composure. That's entirely up to you, Donald said. But if you're willing, I'd like to coordinate our responses. We can support each other through this. And there's something else. You should know this isn't the first time. David has done this before to other women at the company. The company has been covering it up. If we work together, we can make sure he's held accountable and that he can't do this to anyone else. There was a long, heavy pause. Donald could hear Patricia breathing, could almost picture her sitting somewhere with her world collapsing, processing the fact that her entire marriage was built on lies. Yes, she said finally, her voice hardening with resolve. Let's do that. David's going to pay for this. The phone rang once before she picked up. Donald, I know about David, he said calmly, cutting off whatever excuse she'd prepared. I know about Miami. I know about all of it. Silence, then in a small, trembling voice. How? I was there, Glenda. In Miami. I decided to surprise you on your business trip. I heard you with him through the hotel room door. Room 847, remember? He could hear her breathing on the other end, rapid, panicked, unraveling. Donald, it's more complicated than... No, Donald interrupted, his voice unyielding. It's actually very simple. You cheated on me with your boss for at least 8 months. You lied to me every single day. You made me feel crazy for noticing you were distant. And you were planning to hide assets and blindside me with a divorce. Once you got your promotion, I read your text messages with David. You went through my phone? Glenda's voice shifted instantly, panic morphing into defensive anger. A classic tactic. Donald recognized it from years of teaching. When students were caught cheating, they always tried to make it about the discovery, not the betrayal. I hired a private investigator, Donald said. Everything I know is documented and legal. The divorce papers you were served are just the beginning, Glenda. David's company is investigating him for a pattern of sexual harassment. His wife knows everything and is filing for divorce. And I've provided information to journalists about Meridian's toxic culture, protecting powerful men while silencing their victims. You bastard, Glenda hissed. You're trying to destroy my career. Everything I've worked for. I'm trying to hold you accountable, Donald corrected, his voice eerily calm. You and David made choices. You chose to lie, to cheat, to plot against me. Those choices have consequences. You don't get to betray someone who loved you and trusted you and then walk away without facing any repercussions. Patricia Price called to say she'd already consulted with a divorce attorney and was proceeding aggressively. She wanted full custody, the house, and maximum child support and alimony. Her lawyer had sent David a formal letter outlining her demands and making it clear that if he fought her, she would ensure everyone in their social circle knew exactly why their marriage was ending. James sent photos from the Meridian Pharmaceuticals office. Apparently, David had been escorted out by security after his meeting with HR. Employees were buzzing with rumors. The company had sent an internal memo about taking workplace concerns seriously and announced an independent investigation. Glenda sent 14 text messages that Donald didn't answer. We need to talk. Please don't do this. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. How can you be so cruel? David says you're trying to ruin his life. Everyone at work knows now. I'm humiliated. My career is over because of you. I hope you're happy destroying everything. I never meant to hurt you. Please, can we just talk face to face? I'm coming home. We need to talk. Donald, please. I love you. Doesn't that mean anything? Fine, I guess 6 years meant nothing to you. Donald read them all and responded with only one message. Have your lawyer contact mine. Don't come to the house. Tuesday morning, Donald woke to an email from David Price. The subject line: We need to talk man to man. The email was long, rambling, desperate. Donald, I don't know what Glenda told you or what you think happened, but you're making a huge mistake. Yes, Glenda and I have become close. She's an exceptional employee and I've mentored her, but anything beyond that was completely mutual and consensual. I never abused my position or made her uncomfortable. She pursued me as much as I pursued her. You need to understand marriages fail all the time. Sometimes people grow apart. That's not anyone's fault. What you're doing now, destroying my career, contacting my wife, talking to reporters, that's vindictive and unnecessary. You're hurting innocent people. My children don't deserve to have their father's reputation destroyed. Patricia doesn't deserve this humiliation. And Glenda, she's going to lose everything she's worked for because you can't accept that your marriage was already over. I'm asking you man to man to call this off. David and Patricia moved through wealthy circles with ease, and soon the scandal was all anyone whispered about in private school hallways and Buckhead country clubs. And Glenda, poor Glenda, found herself summoned to a marathon HR meeting early Thursday morning. They didn't fire her, but the message was clear. Her promotion to senior director was officially revoked. She was being moved off David's team and quietly reassigned to a completely different department, an unspoken demotion. Everyone could see coming. Her once rising career at Meridian had been cut off at the knees. Inside the company, people no longer hid the truth. Everyone knew exactly how Glenda had climbed the ladder, and no amount of real ability could outrun the reputation she had built. The doors that once opened for her were now slowly, silently closing. Donald didn't need anyone to tell him. Glenda's reputation at work was ruined. David wasn't returning her calls anymore. Word had spread that he was blaming her for everything: the fallout with his wife, the embarrassment at his company, the collapse of their affair, and slowly, painfully, Glenda was realizing that she had sacrificed her marriage for a man now, pretending she didn't even exist. Good, Donald said at first, then caught himself. No, that's not good. It's sad. It's exactly what she deserves, but it's still sad. That's a healthy perspective, Rachel replied gently. You are going to be okay, Donald. This has been brutal, but you're handling it with more grace than most people could. The settlement terms were finalized soon after. Glenda would move out by the end of the month. The divorce would be complete by late January. Donald would keep the house, receive enough financial support to regain stability, and finally be free to start his life over. 2 weeks later, on a cold Saturday morning, just 2 days before Christmas, Donald sat alone in his living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Glenda was gathering the last of her things. The furniture she'd brought into the marriage, her clothes, her books, the artwork she'd collected over the years. The house looked emptier with every passing minute, but to Donald, each bare wall felt like a breath of fresh air. A release, freedom. Glenda had asked to speak with him one final time before leaving for good. She'd been staying with a friend since the settlement, but now she was moving to Boston to take a role at Meridian's East Coast office. Chance to start over somewhere. No one knew what she'd done. She arrived at 10 a.m., looking thinner than Donald remembered. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her hair was now cut short, a sharp contrast to the long waves she always kept. She looked older, exhausted, diminished. "Thank you for letting me come by," she said quietly, standing awkwardly in what used to be their shared living room. "The settlement says you can get your things," Donald replied. "I'm not going to make this difficult. That's not why I'm here." Glenda hugged her arms around herself. "I came to say I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did. For the lying, the cheating, the planning to screw you over financially. All of it." Donald waited in silence. "I've been seeing a therapist," Glenda continued, "trying to understand how I became someone capable of doing what I did. I don't have a perfect answer. It started small. David paying attention to me, making me feel valued, and then it escalated so slowly I didn't see how Far I'd gone until it was too late to step back, without blowing up my entire life. You had a choice at every step, Donald said, his voice steady. I know, she nodded, tears building. I made terrible choices. I convinced myself it was justified, because our marriage felt routine, because David made me feel special, because I believed I deserved success and happiness. I created this story in my head where I was the protagonist, and you were just collateral damage. She swallowed hard. That was wrong. All of it was wrong. It was cruel. I was cruel. Glenda's voice cracked as her eyes filled with tears. And the worst part, you were right about David. He dropped me the second things got complicated. All those promises, leaving Patricia, building a life together, every single one was a lie. He told his lawyers that I seduced him, that I was obsessed, that I wouldn't leave him alone. He's throwing me under the bus to protect his reputation with his wife. I'm sorry, Donald said quietly, and he meant it. That's another betrayal on top of everything else. I don't deserve your sympathy, Glenda whispered. But I needed you to know. I finally understand what I destroyed. Our marriage was real. It was good. And I threw it away for a fantasy, for ego, for validation, for ambition. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. They stood in silence for a long, heavy moment. I forgive you, Donald said at last. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because I don't want to carry anger anymore. But, Glenda, we are not getting back together. That chapter is closed. We both have to move forward. I know, she said softly. I wanted you to understand that I'm sorry. And I hope one day, when enough time has passed, you can look back on the good years, the years that were truly good, without letting this ending poison all of it. Maybe someday, Donald replied. Right now it's still too raw. Glenda nodded, taking in the room one final time, the empty walls where their pictures once hung, the couch where they had watched movies, the window overlooking the yard where they raked leaves just last month. Goodbye, Donald, she murmured. I truly hope you find happiness. You too, Donald said. I hope Boston is a fresh start for you. She left quietly. Donald watched from the window as she loaded the last boxes into her car and drove away. And as her car disappeared down the street, he felt lighter, like a weight he had carried for months had finally lifted. Over the next several months, Donald rebuilt his life piece by piece. He kept the house but made it his own, painted the bedroom a color he liked, bought new furniture, turned Glenda's old office into a reading room. He began dating again, cautiously at first, slowly allowing himself to imagine connection. He joined a gym and lost 20 pounds. He took up painting and discovered a surprising talent for landscapes. Meanwhile, David Price's life unraveled completely. His divorce from Patricia was brutal and very public. She kept the house, secured primary custody, and received a settlement that left David financially broken. He lost his job at Meridian and was quietly blacklisted across the pharmaceutical industry. No company wanted the scandal attached to him. Last Donald heard, David was living in a modest apartment, working as a consultant for a fraction of his former salary, and only seeing his children every other weekend, under supervised conditions. Meridian Pharmaceuticals eventually settled the class action lawsuit brought by Jennifer Brooks and 5 other women for $4.2 million total. The company overhauled its HR policies, hired an independent firm to audit workplace culture, and appointed its first female senior vice president. The scandal had cost the company millions, but it forced real, lasting change. Glenda stayed in Boston. From what mutual friends shared, she was rebuilding her career, slowly but steadily, working harder than ever to prove that any future success came from merit, not office politics or favoritism. She was in therapy now, single, focused, trying to become the kind of person she could genuinely respect. Donald wished her well, from a distance and without bitterness. And Donald himself had learned something profound through the wreckage of betrayal. He learned that a person can survive a broken heart and shattered trust. He learned that revenge wasn't about making others suffer. It was about accountability, about ensuring harmful actions had consequences while still maintaining his own integrity. He learned that the strongest response to betrayal wasn't rage. It was strategic action, grounded in clarity and self-respect. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Donald was sitting on his back deck on a warm spring evening, grading papers and sipping a glass of wine when his phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Mr. Wan, this is Jennifer Brooks. I wanted to thank you. Because you spoke up, I found my voice again. Because you held David accountable, I was able to get justice. I hope you're doing well. You're a good man." Donald smiled softly and typed back, "Thank you. I hope you're doing well too. We all deserve better than what happened." He set his phone down and leaned back in his chair, gazing out at the yard. The azaleas were blooming, splashing the garden with pinks and purples. The evening air was warm and smelled faintly of honeysuckle. A cardinal perched on the oak tree at the property line, singing its clear, bright notes into the quiet. Donald had lost his marriage. He had been lied to, betrayed, and shaken to his core. But he had gained something too, something he had never expected. Self-respect, integrity, and the quiet certainty that he had stood up for what was right. Even when it was excruciating, Donald carried all of that with him now. He'd protected future victims. He'd held powerful people accountable. He'd refused to be silenced, dismissed, or diminished. In the months that followed, Donald often found himself thinking back to that November night in Miami, standing outside. Room 847 frozen in shock, listening to his marriage die on the other side of a hotel door. That moment had been a fork in the road. He could have stormed in, turned the hallway into a battleground, exploded with rage and humiliation. He could have let anger make every decision for him. He could have reacted impulsively and burned everything, including himself, to the ground. But he chose differently. He chose strategy over chaos. He chose accountability over revenge. He chose to think beyond his own hurt, to consider the women who came before Glenda and the ones who would come after if no one stopped David Price. And because of that choice, he didn't just reclaim his own life. He helped protect others from the same pain he and Patricia Price endured. The lesson was never that betrayal doesn't hurt. It does, completely, deeply, and unforgivingly. The lesson was that how you respond to betrayal reveals who you truly are. You can let it break you, or you can let it shape you into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Donald chose transformation. He learned that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's accountability with integrity. It's ensuring something meaningful comes from your suffering. It's refusing to let betrayal turn you into someone small and vengeful. Sometimes justice and healing walk side by side. Sometimes protecting others helps you patch together your own heart. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do after betrayal is make sure it wasn't pointless. Donald Wan learned all of that the hard way, but he learned it well. And as he sat on his deck that warm spring evening, single but not broken, hurt but not hollow, he understood something with absolute clarity. He had walked through fire and emerged stronger, steadier, and more himself on the other side. That was the real victory. Not that David and Glenda had suffered consequences, but that Donald had survived their betrayal and become a man he could truly be proud of. If you enjoyed this story, like the video and leave a comment about your thoughts. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.